Today's episode is hosted by my wonderful friend Roz. Roz speaks with Kim about her deeply personal journey of identity, migration, and belonging. Raised in North London by an English mother and a Trinidadian father, Kim shares the story of her involuntary move to the USA, a transition that shaped her life unexpectedly. From navigating cultural shifts to confronting questions of race and heritage, Kim opens up about what it means to find home and wholeness across continents. This thought provoking conversation explores the complexities of migration, family roots, and the evolving meaning of success. It's honest, inspiring, and not to be missed.
Welcome, Kim. It's so lovely to have you here today. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you joining our thinking space, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your journey. And thank you for sharing.
Thank you for having me, and I'm very much looking forward to this conversation. So it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. So tell me, where does it start? How do we, the audience, get to know your journey?
Um, it's always wonderful to have this opportunity, and I think any time that someone reflects on their journey, it probably changes a little bit. It's what's important to share and what's not. So bear with me. So I think that for the geographical context, which is always important to me, born and raised in North London, and my mum was from Bethnal Green, East London, and my dad was from Port of Spain, Trinidad.
Okay.
I usually pause at that particular piece of my life. So I grew up in this really, again, this is in hindsight, but it was a really colourful childhood in many ways. I would say my parents were very balanced in terms of influence.
Yeah.
So I was the white side of family and friends, and I also had a coloured side, colourful side of family and friends. And my dad was very active in North London in terms of preserving his culture of the Caribbean.
Absolutely.
So I do begin my story by saying just really how rich I was in a very, intangible way to say I had just all these influences from all different cultures. To top it off, my parents were very social. So it seemed as though every Saturday there were friends and parties that even as a child, I was just part of this really vibrant life.
Absolutely. Because it's a Caribbean thing, wasn't it? Back in the day, because they couldn't go into clubs, they would have their own sort of social gathering and everyone would come. And as a child, it'd be really exciting because it was always a party and music and dancing and food.
You know, it's an interesting point, Rosie, there, because sometimes people want to talk about being in school or being in England and possibly being a minority, being the only colour in those environments. And yes, that is true that within my school day, which was a very, very happy time as well, I did really enjoy going to school and being with friends. But I was usually the only person, or at least only one of a couple of people of colour. But I didn't feel lacking because when I came home and again on weekends, it was so full on in terms of this aspect of my other ethnicity that I didn't feel as though I lacked in my awareness of who I really was. So I think moving that story forward, for some reason, or a lot of reasons really, my parents decided that we would move to the United States. And I talk about this piece of my life with some pain. Was in hindsight, in those days, when parents made a decision, they didn't necessarily discuss it with their children. They just announced one day that say goodbye, to family, and off packed the suitcases and off we went.
Must have been huge as a child.
It really was. But it was, as a child, I think children are very resilient. They sort of are able to rediscover and remake themselves quickly. And it's not until we become adults that we realize that actually something's missing here. Something didn't happen. Something wasn't said. About that a little bit now because my own daughter is in her mid-20s. The notion, we basically consult with her if we're going to boil an egg. It's equal vote on. But again, it's significantly part of my story because when we get to the ending sort of years of my story and people say, well, why weren't you happy? What was the issue? It all began with the fact that it wasn't my choice in the first place to leave England. And that took me years and years and years to discover. So back to the storyline. We all moved to the United States, and I quickly realized that the United States was a very segregated country. And even though we lived in the area of New York, I was pretty much instantly, I would say, let's say coerced, to not say forced. I was coerced into making a decision about what are you? Are you Black or are you white?
Yeah.
And this was really literally a question that I felt as though I had my own category. Jumping around a little bit, I would just say that there have over the years become different words, especially in America, used for someone of my heritage. It's popular in some communities to say biracial.
Yeah.
However, personally, I don't like biracial because I don't feel as I'm half of anything.
Absolutely.
So for me, just me, mixed is a more comfortable area to sit. But mixed is not really an option. When you're applying for a job in America or anything really, any form that you fill out, there is no section on there that when it comes to the to fill it out, there is no section, there's no category that says mixed. You literally have to choose one of the other options.
And it goes back to the word that you said. I was forced to go to America. I had no choice.
I had no choice.
Even thinking about the questionnaire of ethnicity, you have to pick one.
Immediately, instantly. So I think that that's an important talking point for anyone who's listening that I really want to share, because immigration is such a top of mind category at the moment. It's trending. It's in the news every day. And again, I didn't choose to become an immigrant. I was perfectly happy living my life in North London, where I've got my passport, I've got my NHS and all of that. And I was taken to a different country where I had none of that. And along with that, I started to I was in this category, immigrant, where there are sadly a lot of negatives placed upon you. And so I have a very special place in my heart for anyone who moves from one country to another.
Absolutely.
And if you choose to make that move, then I give you all of my blessings. If it's your choice, you will make it. You will survive. But if it wasn't your choice in the first place, there may be trauma. There may be.
Absolutely. And I think there is something about, children's mental health wasn't considered in the way that it is now, and the importance of endings for that child and starting again.
Yes.
It's a huge thing, even for a family to settle into a country where you don't know the culture and how to navigate left and right. Yeah, it's a massive thing, and I think it's we don't look at it necessarily as trauma Sometimes people look at it as starting again, but there is deep-rooted trauma in that.
Yes, it's very deep rooted. I'll sort of fast forward a little bit on that storyline.
Mm.
It was America, land of, opportunity. So on one hand, I was very happy to have become a journalist, have an amazing career, which to a career in tourism. I mean, there were some really good wins.
Yeah.
And who knows? I often ask myself, if I had stayed in England, would I? Would I have met my partner? Would, have had a lovely family that unfolded from there? I don't know. But I did have that opportunity. But at the same parallel to that, inside, I was just miserable every day. And I just think that is something that a lot of immigrants have to face and have to deal with silently a lot. So I think it raises the point that, as you were saying there, Rosie, that in those days, first of all, I think everyone can relate to, usually it's your grandparents' generation, that they just didn't talk. They've got stories, loads of stories and
yes,
life experiences, but they did not pass that along down the line. So my parents weren't actually sharing any of their challenges. They certainly didn't have internet, which makes a huge big difference, I think, these days in terms of what you might be able to research. Research the community that you're moving into. As you said, research the culture, because just because a different country might, and often does not, but might speak English, there's still such differences in culture. Moving that forward, increasingly things just weren't whole for me. And sometimes it would manifest in anger, say things publicly about Americans. And then suddenly, oops, I realize, oh, wait, I can't say that because
I'm in America.
I'm in America, so that was really rude. I'm a person, but it was just like really unhappy and hated everything. As the years went by, to sort of condense that story, what changed was my mother passed away very early in her life. So I was challenged with not having a mum to talk to. My mum, who was so British, that used to be that person I could sort of talk to about home, really. So she was gone. Sort of stuck it through with my dear, dear dad, who lived to a ripe old age. But it was when my father died, so certain things were being sort of sent away, certain anchors, or even, I want to say anchor in not such a positive way, when you have something that's chaining you or holding you down. So, I wasn't held down as much because my mum was gone. I wasn't held down as much because my dad was gone. So the reasons for being there was,
shifted.
It was shifting. And I was starting to come to realize, like, oh, wait a minute, I don't actually have to be here.
Absolutely.
This is very far into my lifetime by now, but when my father passed away, I was really challenged with grief. So finally, I took myself to a counselor, to a therapist. That's what changed.
Fantastic.
Honestly, I can say that after all the years of struggle, I sat down, and in the first 5 minutes, when I said to a professional, well, X amount of years ago, when I was X years old, my whole family picked up and left and went to America. In the first 5 minutes, she said, oh my God, you're suffering from loss.
Absolutely.
And trauma from loss. And then she proceeded to say all the things I had lost, like your aunties, your cousins. These are people that were so important to me that I just, again, sort of no choice of my own, but I'd literally walked away from. And, I can't say never looked back, but they felt as though we'd never looked back.
Yeah.
They lost as well.
Absolutely.
Healing had never happened.
Yeah.
I'd never had closure. And that's when the penny dropped.
Yeah.
When I was able to actually look at things as a loss
Yeah.
and then deal with it.
That's incredibly powerful because they do say that how you experience your first loss kind of determines how you experience losses down the line.
Oh,
So I can imagine what, that your little self went back to
yes.
that place when you got told this is what's going to happen. You had no control over it. And now suddenly you're in a space where you have control
Yes.
and you made a decision. And it's that freedom.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. So I highly recommend a professional therapist who can, sort of help to the root.
Absolutely.
And once that, it seems like such a simple statement, just recognizing that I lost everything that I loved one day almost,
Yeah.
certainly all in 1 month. No one in the new place, everyone in the new place and the destination, they expect you to love everything that they have to offer. Oh, you've come to this new land.
Absolutely.
We're wonderful and everything, but it's not,
What did
wasn't.
they used to call it? The land of milk and honey?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And gratitude.
And I wasn't grateful for it because it's making very much sense for me. And I do emphasize, if you choose and identify a place that you do think can be your milk and honey, go for it. That I do support wholeheartedly. But if it's not your place, and another way that I've sort of interpreted this, once that was explained to me, I was able to think back and say, it was actually my father's dream. So my father dreamt of leaving Trinidad one day, which he did. He went to England, but then he dreamt of going to America. That was his dream.
Yeah.
He was happy and he became an American citizen. I remember the day he walked through the door having acquired American citizenship.
Wow.
Heart broke. It shattered. The concept of a citizen of somewhere else was not my dream. So that's my message as well, is to say, if it's not, think about carefully about whose dream is it?
Yes.
And if it's not your part of your dream, it's not going to work. Be happy in someone else's dream.
It's so interesting and really powerful because you said at the beginning, when I got to America, I had to choose, am I black or am I white? And now it's, am I American? Am I British?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And amongst all of that, you've had a beautiful life in terms of your journalism. You said if I wasn't in America, if I hadn't done I would have met my husband, my family.
Exactly. So there are loads of material, is the words I'm looking for. There are loads of material things that can mask. Yes, loads of them. And again, I would try to be the first to recognize what I can be grateful for from my life in America, but it wasn't my dream.
Yeah.
So eventually, I'll turn that a little bit forward for you to say it's ironic that it was in fact America that ignited me to find my actual passion and dream in life. Here, the little story behind that is that being British, America, every day of my life, an American would say to me, "You are from England, you must know everything there is to know about tea." And honestly, if there was one more thing that I could just make my skin crawl.
Yeah.
Don't ask me that question again. We do drink tea a lot, but I don't know everything there is to know about it. It's stereotype. But one day I just had really had enough about that question. And I thought, well, hold on a minute. Why don't I, what's preventing me knowing everything about tea? How do you know everything that there is about tea? Then I can stop the people asking me this question. It was a driver for me. So I went about the mission of coursework, and
Okay.
I eventually became a certified tea sommelier.
Yay.
So it was from that,
Wow.
or questions, that was the end of that. Like, so you must know everything about tea. Well, actually, yes.
Actually, I do. It's fantastic.
So it elevated my personal confidence. I suddenly had credentials that were valid specifically in my mind, which was really important. And that's how I actually created the business that we now call Tea and Grazing. Today, I have to say it was because I was in America at the time, and
Fantastic.
me to that.
So you found your calling.
So I found my calling, and became credentialed in it. And at the same time, at this point, I was really looking and examining very seriously about the going back to my own dream, which would be to return to the UK. So once again, trying to be considerate of all things in my life. My daughter was in uni in America. I didn't want to repeat for her what had happened to me and just say, hey, forget this and go away from it. So I wanted to see her through uni. I wanted to see my husband through his really, really illustrious career as a board to retirement, and then just factor all that in and say, when's the right time? And the right time did come. All those elements came together. He was sort of satisfied, I think, with his life as it had been in his country, but also had come to love England enough. We'd obviously been making multiple frequent visits so that everyone could be on board when that time really came, and the time eventually did come. I would say for everyone, it was a matter of vision boarding and manifesting. So it wasn't something that I just presented overnight and said, hey, this is a plan, let's try this. It really was meticulously thought through
Preparation.
and prepared so that there were as minimal surprises as could be in terms of this move back to the UK.
Beautiful. So where can people find your amazing business? This is your time to shine, Kim.
Thank you. So I'm excited to say that Virgin Experience Days, so if anyone's familiar with that, you can actually select a tea tasting with Tea and Grazing is our business name. So we do tea tastings. I should clarify, it's not tea, it's definitely not a Victorian afternoon.
Okay.
It's got all the flavors of all of my ethnicity and all the countries that I've ever been to. So it's a tea tasting, and it incorporates my husband's illustrious career in music. So we have lots of fun with beautiful playlists that he provides for the tea tasting. So Virgin Experience Days, you can Tea and Grazing. And I love Instagram, so you can find us at Tea. It is tea with that long line, so Tea and Grazing, but in between each word, there's the long line that goes in between tea, long line, and long line.
The hyphen. Okay, right.
Not the hyphen, but that long line that goes at the bottom of the line.
Okay, right.
So tea, but generally if you look for Tea and Grazing, we should come up.
Tea and Grazing and music.
And music. So that's how we channel all of the experiences and in fact sort of turn around the trauma into the, and sometimes it is important to look back, but mainly so that you can make sure that the future is within your boundaries and not someone else's.
Beautiful. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you.
So enriching and exciting. And I think I'm going to have you back because I've just got so much I wanted to say. And I just, your life has just been so colourful and creative. And your journey of change and having your voice has just been so amazing.
Change is important, and I urge everyone not to fear the change. Times it might take a week or it might take years before you can put certain fears behind. And I did mention that the universe seemed to be, as taking my mother away or taking my father away seemed to be much more to do with allowing me to think about, because otherwise I would have continued to think about them.
Absolutely.
That they had joy out of their choices, but it was also not my choice, so it was time to identify my choice. Yeah, so
And that resilience enabled you to come back home.
Yes, home is a key word, and I say that every day. It's not always perfect at home, but it's your perfect.
And it's where the heart is.
Where the heart is.
Thank you so much.
You so much for allowing me to share it all.
My pleasure.
To do that as well.
I hope you will accept an invitation for another conversation.
So thank you.
Thank you so much, Kim.